Hi everyone, this is Levi. In this video, I want to talk about Jupiter's upcoming transit through the sign of Scorpio. And Jupiter will be transiting the sign of Scorpio for a whole year, beginning at October 10th, 2017, right? This is good news for the sign of Scorpio, right? Because Jupiter, applying Gemini's second source of strength, is a manifesting planet. And Jupiter is, the great benefic, we say, right? So this is very good news. Now, Scorpio is gonna be housed in your horoscope, right? So I'm gonna go over this for all ascendant signs, okay? But also look at the house cusps that fall in the sign of Scorpio, which you can find at Lotta's birth chart calculator, right? Because the house cusps represent the body of the house. They represent the focal point. They are the focal point of the house, okay? So they are the sensitive point within the house, like the densest region, if you will. And so, it represents, again, the body of things. So, for example, if in this horoscope, you can see this is an ascendant Capricorn, right? We see that the 10th house is Libra, right? The 11th house is Scorpio. Now we see that the 9th cusp also falls in the sign of Scorpio in the 11th house here. See, so now if this happens in your horoscope, I advise you to look at the explanation for the 9th house as well. Okay, now, I'm not going to go into the technicalities of this, but it has to do with the difference between Earth space and local space. Okay, so but definitely look at the explanation for the houses of which the house cusps are falling into the sign of Scorpio, and this will definitely apply. Okay, so Jupiter is a manifestor, as I mentioned, meaning that whatever Jupiter touches, whatever it conjuncts, or Rashi aspects, because this is a Gemini technique, and where we use Rashi aspects, will come to fruition, and Jupiter is going to give its strength to that sign and whatever contains that sign. Okay. So now, before I go on about Jupiter's transit through Scorpio, I want to touch briefly on Jupiter's placement in the sign of Libra, because Jupiter has been transiting the sign of Libra for the past year, blessing Libra, right? And we say blessing because it is a manifesting planet. So whatever it touches, it makes it grow. It makes those things grow. See, it's also Mercury is also a manifesting planet, and also the lord of a sign. So like, for example, for Capricorn, Saturn is the ruler. So when Saturn, enters the sign of Capricorn, which it will in the end of this year, Saturn becomes manifesting for Capricorn, which is great news because, Capricorn is going to have great manifesting potential in the whole, year of 2018, right? So because we're going to have two manifesting influences onto the sign of Capricorn for the whole year. And then whenever Mercury transits the signs of Scorpio, Capricorn, Taurus, or Leo, and there will be three manifesting planets to the sign of Capricorn. Now, this is a different video. Just wanted to touch on this. Now, I was talking about Jupiter's placement in the sign of Libra, right? Because Jupiter is a manifestor, so it's going to manifest in all signs, but in more, it's going to perform better, right? In certain signs than in other. Okay, now this depends on Jupiter's dignity. Okay, and Venus is the ruler of Libra, right? And so Venus is, when we look at natural friendships, Venus is inimical towards Jupiter. Okay, so I will explain this a little bit. First of all, certain planets are attributed certain signs, right? Because their inherent symbolism matches. Okay, so for example, Venus is the minister, right? The diplomat. Venus is about valuing things, weighing things. Libra is all about relationships, right? It's all about trade, etc. You see, so it's about balancing out extremes. So these symbolisms, are compatible. They match. Okay, and so this is why the planets, are attributed their signs. Now, planets, you know, have their responsibilities, right? They need to fulfill their responsibilities, their talents. They need to express what they are, right? Because the planets, again, represent the conscious forces of the chart, and the signs represent the unconscious aspects of the chart. So it's the planets that give consciousness to the signs, okay? So, you know, taking into consideration all of this, you know, there's natural friendships. So certain planets are friendly towards other planets, right? So certain planets are neutral towards planets, and you know, planets are also inimical or enemies towards other planets. So, and this, you know, is determined by how well their symbolism matches, right? How well or how compatible their agendas are to make the kingdom, right, which is ruled by the sun, a better place, right? And so, you know, this is going to play out in our consciousness. So when Venus, you know, the ruler of Libra, you know, welcomes, we could say, Jupiter, right? You know, Jupiter needs to live according to Venus's laws, rules, right? So Jupiter enters the house of Venus there in the sign of Libra. And so when we look at, you know, what Venus and Jupiter, you know, represent, see, Venus is about worldly affairs, right? It's a rajasic planet, meaning it deals with desires as well, with value, with beauty, with art, right? With women, luxuries, vehicles, your value, okay? And again, Venus is the diplomat. It goes to seal deals, and you know, in other kingdoms to make its own kingdom a better place, right? It's the minister in that sense, okay? So that's its agenda, that's its nature, okay? Now, when Jupiter enters the sign of Libra, Jupiter is about natural law. Jupiter is about dharma, right? Jupiter is about gaining knowledge and understanding, right? Jupiter is about virtue. Jupiter also rules children. It rules the husband for a heterosexual woman, the husband for a homosexual man. It rules over, you know, paternal grandparents, wealth, etc. Okay, all these things are attributed, expressed by Jupiter. Now, most importantly, Jupiter is, you know, beyond worldly affairs, we could say. So, you know, Venus is the great benefic as well, right? Jupiter and Venus are the two great benefics, but Venus has a different agenda. It's more fixed on worldly affairs because it's Rajasic, okay? Jupiter is a sattvic planet, right? It's about your sattvic planets get into, you know, concrete experiences of the sign because they're inspired to do so naturally. Okay, so Jupiter is about natural law. It's beyond worldly affairs. So when Jupiter enters Venus' sign, it's not able to express itself most effectively, right? Because Venus just won't allow it. Venus is not about that. Okay, so you look at it like that. So even though, you know, Jupiter is a manifester, right? Applying Gemini's second source of strength, it's going to manifest whatever, you know, it influences. Okay, also in the sign of Libra, it's going to do it for all signs, but its dignity is not great because, you know, Venus is inimical towards Jupiter. Okay, so this is good news now because Jupiter is moving through the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. And Mars is a natural friend towards Jupiter. Okay, so Mars is going to help, it's going to enforce Jupiter's expression, Jupiter's you know, possibilities, Jupiter's agenda, because they're friends, right? So Mars is all about logic, about solving problems, right? Mars is the surgeon. Mars, you know, is whatever is within your consciousness. Mars is going to exert that onto the world, onto things. You know, it wants to do something. Okay, it's you know, your energetic system. And so when Jupiter enters the sign of Scorpio, Jupiter will, you know, get a Martian flair to it. So the way Jupiter is going to express itself is in a Martian way. And so they're compatible. Their agendas are compatible. And so this is a very positive change. Okay, so Jupiter is in a great dignity in the sign of Scorpio. Okay, now before I go on about Scorpio and Jupiter, or Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio, I'm going to explain the qualities of Jupiter. Okay, this is given in the classics. Okay, I'm going to touch on about 8, 9 qualities to get a better understanding of what Jupiter is all about, and then we're going to, explain about Scorpio sign, and we're going to mix those two. Okay, and then after, I'm going to go over this for all signs, what it means. Again, look at it from your ascendant sign, but also importantly, look at the house cusp falling in the sign of Scorpio, which you can find on Lada's birth chart calculator. Okay, right. So the first quality, okay, of Jupiter is that it is a samya, or it is a gentle planet. It is a benefic, as we say in Western astrology. Benefics are all about ease, right? Bringing things in a gentle way. Okay, so malefics like Saturn and Mars, they bring things, but in a malefic way. It's always going to be involving some, hard work or resistance, or they bring it in a less comfortable, pleasant way. Okay, Jupiter is not about that. Jupiter is a gentle planet. Okay, now benefics and malefics both can give as well. They can take. Okay, they can take as well because, for example, and I give 2 examples. And there's a Gemini technique to determine the amount of children, right? And Venus in that story, Venus, one of the 2 great benefics, is a destructive planet. It's a planet that prevents conception to take place, that prevents childbirth to take place, because we can say that Venus is about all about a comfortable life, right? So, and children are all about hard work, and and so. Also if you look at mythology, the benefics can definitely take things away. So, right. Also, another example is that in Venus-Jupiter dasha, for example, and a dasha is a planetary period, right? It is a period, certain planets are ruling certain areas in your life, and during that dasha, during that planetary period, these areas become center stage, right? These karmas will come to fruition, and new karmas will be forged, etc. Okay, so in Venus-Jupiter dasha or Jupiter-Venus dasha, there's a great potential for spiritual development, but people tend to, it tends to play out that people have to let something go that is very close to their heart, right? So these are, would say, Jupiter-Venus, it's going to be a magnificent time because they're the 2 great benefics, but, in order to grow, we need to let things go, right? And so in Jupiter-Venus dasha or Venus-Jupiter, this tends to play out, okay? So just, making a point that benefic, malefic, both can give things as take as well, and as they can take things. Okay, but most importantly, Jupiter is a gentle, benefic planet. Now, the second quality is that Jupiter is a masculine planet, and masculine planets want to do something on an external level. Okay, they want to do something in the world. Okay, masculine. The moon is a feminine planet, and the moon is all about internal fulfillment, right? It's all about personal fulfillment and emotional, balancing out on an emotional level, etc. Okay. A third quality is that Jupiter is a sattvic planet. Okay, sattvic planets, as I mentioned before, going to concrete experiences of the sign because they're inspired to. Okay, it's because of who they are, right? That is and so there's 3 sattvic planets like the Sun and the Moon and Jupiter, right? The Sun, the king, right? The light of consciousness. The Moon reflects the light of consciousness onto the world, right? Onto matter. And Jupiter is, the guru, right? The great teacher, the one that gains understanding and depth. And so whatever it influences, it will try to understand about that sign, about what is in there, okay? So it's a sattvic planet. It's an inspired planet. Jupiter is a highly creative force. Okay, so in that sense, again, it's all very positive. Okay, Jupiter is also a Brahmin. Okay, there's merchants. There's the Vaishyas, we say. There's the Sudra, right? Saturn is a Sudra. It's a laborer. It deals with pains and where we need to pay our dues and where we need to take responsibilities, etc. Okay, but Jupiter is a Brahmin, and Brahmins are all about contemplation, emotions, feeling. You know, they are all about gaining knowledge and understanding, right? They're gaining understanding and knowledge, right? They want to go in, you know, Jupiter wants to go into things and elevate things, make things bigger. And it's very inclusive, okay? So that is what a Brahman means, okay? That's also one category. Another category is that Jupiter is a starry planet, okay? There's luminous planets like the sun and the moon, right? They're the brightest. Then there's also dark grahas or dark planets like Rahu and Ketu. Rahu, you know, will bring out the dark side in an extreme way. Ketu will do it in a more subtle and hidden way, okay? But Jupiter is, you know, a starry planet. Saturn up to Mercury are all starry planets. And starry planets, you know, have to do with developing our, you know, skills and capacities, right? They are all about efficiency through practice. They want to do something in the kingdom. And, you know, Jupiter wants to see good luck. It wants to see wisdom and, you know, the expansion of understanding, etc. Okay, so that's another quality of Jupiter. It's a starry planet. Jupiter is also a planet that looks everywhere equally, okay? So planets can, you know, look up, like the sun looks always up, always wants to create its kingdom, always on to the next thing. You know, Saturn looks down. Also, Saturn looks, you know, it's not able to look, you know, in front of him because it's always sees the negative, we could say, okay? Rahu is also like that. But Jupiter is, you know, has the ability to look everywhere equally. Okay, the moon is also like that. So, meaning that it's able to, you know, look at the positive and the negative. Okay, and from there it can objectively observe, and, you know, take the best thing to move on with. Okay, and so again, you know, it's always bringing this, you know, quality of expansion and understanding of things. Okay. So that's another quality. Then there's also a quality which is, you know, deals with the form of the planets. Like there's quadrupeds, right? Saturn and Mars are quadrupeds. They can deal with extreme burdens. You know, the sun has a bird form, right? It can fly wherever it needs to, you know, plant some seeds to create its kingdom. The moon is a creeping form, right? The moon just takes whatever it needs to survive. It's very adaptable and this kind of thing. Jupiter is a biped. It's a human form, right? It stands on two legs, we could say. And humans are known for, you know, being the longest distance land dwellers. Okay, so they can endure things and they can stay focused on the path, right? And they're all about long-term planning. So Jupiter is about long-term planning. So that's also an important quality of Jupiter, right? Jupiter is also a moist planet. You know, there's dry planets, there's wet planets, and there's moist planets, which are, you know, a combination of dry and wet. The sun, for example, is a dry planet. Okay, so the dry planets are about, you know, the truth, rationale, objectivity. They're not necessarily the most sensitive. Okay, the sun is like that. Moon is a wet planet. Moon is about comforting. Wet planets are about comforting, soothing, right? More internal fulfillment, this kind of thing. So Jupiter is a mixture of the two, and, you know, the special quality is that it's able to hold things. Okay, it's dry and wet, so it's moist. So this is another very positive, you know, quality of Jupiter. So you can imagine that, you know, it's no coincidence that Jupiter has all these qualities, right? You know, Jupiter to be the great benefic, right? Even though the classics say that Venus is the great benefic, but, you know, Venus has more to do, is Rajasic, so it has more to do with worldly affairs, and, you know, desires, you know, tend to sneak in there as well. And, you know, when Venus gets into, you know, the sign, it always wants to get some pleasure out of it, okay? So that's one other quality. And then, you know, there's the quality that Jupiter is, you know, a manifesting planet, right? Which is very important, applying Gemini's second source of strength, okay? So, you know, this is some information about what the classics have to say about the quality of, or the qualities of Jupiter, okay? No coincidence there. Now, let's look at the sign of Scorpio. What does Scorpio, you know, stand for? What does it mean? Now, we all, you know, I think most of us know that Scorpio is the you know, eighth original sign of the zodiac, right, which deals with transformation, you could say. Okay, the eighth house is the house of transformation and transmutation. Okay, transmuting needs and desires that are not able to fulfill us. Okay, and so Scorpio is a water sign. Okay, so water is always related to spiritual growth. Okay, it's therefore also a moksha sign. Moksha means liberation, right? The fourth, the eighth, and the 12th houses or signs, right? The water signs are the moksha signs. They deal with liberation, getting, you know, away from the troubles of the world, we could say. And they're all about, you know, they're water signs, so they're all about contemplation. You know, it's also gaining knowledge and meditation. And you see, Scorpio is also a Brahman sign. Right? Jupiter is a Brahman planet. Scorpio is also a Brahman sign, so that's compatible. So, and you know, they deal with, you know, contemplation and emotions and getting deep into things, right? And so we know this about Scorpio. Now, the eighth house, you know, sudden transformations, ups and downs, you know, deep spiritual potential, right? The classics say that the water signs have the greatest potential for spiritual development. It is the sign of the occult, right? The things that are under the surface, right? Taboo. It deals with the dark side. See, Scorpio is all about developing psychological integrity, okay? Becoming psychologically healthy. And in order to do that, we need to dive deep sometimes, right? We need to face the shadow side, the dark side. We need to give it space, give it room to just be, and without, you know, necessarily acting on it too much, right? Without, you know, suppressing it, just giving it the space to breathe and, you know, to observe it. And, you know, Scorpio is very much about, you know, what images have we built throughout the years because of our education, because of our upbringing, right? Because of our cultural, social conditioning. What images have been ingrained so, you know, strongly in our brain that, you know, we become slaves of it. That we develop tendencies and habits and mechanical habits which are not beneficial to our health and, you know, feeling of fulfillment. And so Scorpio is the sign that wants to bring those things out, right? It's gonna hide those things, but, you know, in due time, and when the, you know, the time comes, these things will, you know, come out. And, you know, when Jupiter transits Scorpio, this is a great blessing because Jupiter is going to shine a light, right? It's going to give its wisdom and knowledge to bring things to the surface and to heal them. Because if we can put things in a larger perspective, if we can have the eagle's eye view, right? We heal, right? We understand, we heal. And so, see, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio and Mars is the soldier, right? And so in Scorpio, we fight our inner battles, okay? So Mars rules both a fire sign, Aries, as well as a water sign, Scorpio. So in Aries, it's very much upfront, right? Outgoing, fiery, right? It's following its inspirations, etc. In Scorpio, it is much more about fighting the inner battle, right? It's water, it's a water sign. So we need Mars in good condition to fight the inner battle, okay? And so when we, you know, combine Jupiter and Mars there, you know, this is a powerful combination. These are two masculine planets, Jupiter being very inspirational, you know, Sattvic, Mars being, you know, able to, it's tamasic, right? Able to deal with problems and to push forward and to cut the cords and to, you know, go beyond the petty little self, right? And, or, you know, because Scorpio tends to, you know, when afflicted, it can make things drown, we could say, okay? So, but, you know, in due time, things will, you know, start floating to the surface. And, you know, Jupiter transit through Scorpio is a great time to let these things come up and transmute them, transform them into, you know, bigger states of awareness, okay, which is definitely indicated by Jupiter's presence there, okay. Now, what Gemini has to say about Scorpio is, you know, demons, water, serpents, and, you know, serpents is related to Vishnu here because Vishnu is often depicted as a serpent. and deprivation of that contained in the breast. Okay, demons, again, it's about becoming psychologically, healthy. Demons, facing the demons, right? And so Scorpio is very much about that. Water, again, has a spiritual connotation. Serpents also, right? And Vishnu, is Neptune in Western astrology, definitely a spiritual, connotation. Serpents, can also relate to the Kundalini energy, which, is the energy that rises up the spine and, has both, it shows spiritual potential, great spiritual potential, but it can also indicate, destructive possibilities. Okay, so, and then deprivation of that contained in the breast is, mother's milk, for example. It's all about nourishment. Okay, and the lack of nourishment, people can feel, a great, amount of, or level of emptiness, right? And the moon is debilitated in the first 3 degrees of Scorpio, right? So feelings of emptiness, right? And so, but there's a big detachment process going on, right? And Mars is helping with that. And see, it doesn't necessarily have to relate to the mother, right? Scorpio can be prominent, and the mother could have been very loving and caring. But sometimes, the root of the problem goes much further, like it's an ancestral thing, right? The lineage, you can check this out. And, in all sorts of ceremonies, shamanic ceremonies, it's been well established that, problems can be seen that go, 4 or 5 generations back. The root of certain specific, psychological problems, blockages can have their origin there. And so, Jupiter is there to heal that, to bring it up, and to, make sure that we understand and that we can move on. And it's going to be a very manifesting year. You see the end of 2017, Jupiter's transit to Scorpio. Then the end of from October on, then the end of 2017, Saturn will be transiting its own sign, Capricorn, which is great because it's going to become a manifestor as well, right? So Capricorn in 2018 is under serious manifesting influence of Jupiter and Saturn for the whole year, right? The whole time that Jupiter transits Scorpio is going to be 2 manifesting influences to Capricorn. And then if we add Mercury, the other manifesting planet, when it transits Scorpio, Capricorn, Taurus, and Leo, there's going to be 3 manifesting influences to Capricorn. So Capricorn is going to, definitely manifest big time in 2018, no doubt about it. Okay, and everybody's going to benefit because Capricorn is going to be a house in all horoscopes, right? So, but we're talking about Jupiter and Scorpio. Okay, so transformations, right? Transmuting what is no longer serving us to be fulfilled human beings and to grow with that. Okay. So I think I discussed most things here that I wanted to say for the introduction. Okay, so I mentioned I will, talk about this, what it means for all ascendant signs. Okay, hope I'm not forgetting anything. But okay, I think that's enough. Talk to you in a couple of minutes. Bye. Okay, now before I go on about explaining what it means for all ascendant signs, I just want to correct something. In the beginning of the introduction, I talked about the importance of looking at the house cusps that fall in the sign of Scorpio, and then you can look at the explanation for these houses as well, because they represent the focal point of that house, right? They represent the body of things. Okay, so. And I said that there's a difference between Earth space and local space. Now that's not correct. I'm having a little trouble with the Mercury retrograde, right? So there's a difference between Earth space and zodiacal space. Okay, zodiacal space is, the zodiac is formed, by the intersection of the ecliptic with the celestial equator, right? At the time of the vernal equinox, right? This is where Aries starts, right? And we draw, 12 equal portions of 30 degrees, and this is the zodiac, right? So, and the moment you were born, the tropical sign that was rising on the eastern horizon is your ascendant sign. Okay, so we have this, we have zodiacal space, right? But Earth space is the moment you were born, right? You fell out of the lap of your mother. If you would look straight up, right? That is the MC. That is the 10th house cusp, right? And so it's going to depend on where you're at on Earth, whether the 10th house cusp is going to overlap, right, correspond with the 10th house, the zodiacal 10th house, right? So there can be a disparity, a difference between the two. Like in this case, for example, this is a Capricorn Lagna or ascendant, and the 10th house is Libra, right? But you see that the MC falls in the 12th house here, okay, in the sign of Sagittarius. So there is a difference there, right? Okay, so, and that's the difference. This is my point being. So it's important to look at the house cusps that fall in the sign of Scorpio as well. Okay, so here in this case, there's the 9th cusp falling in sign of Scorpio. So Scorpio is the 11th house. So you're going to look at the explanation for that, and also the 9th house, right, which is indicated here by the 9th cusp, the focal point. So it's going to have an, you know, a significance for you in your horoscope, if, you know, depending on what house cusps fall into the sign of Scorpio. Okay, so just wanted to clarify that. Then I'm going to just touch briefly on some other, you know, thoughts about Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio. Okay, so as I mentioned, Jupiter rules children, right? The husband for heterosexual woman, homosexual man, paternal grandparents, and teachers, gurus, right? It's also your wealth. So in the sign of Scorpio, this, you know, it's the original 8th sign of the zodiac. So Scorpio, you know, when we look at Brihat Parashara Shastra for the 8th house, gives also, you know, cheats. Okay, so in respect to teachers and this kind of thing, just be watchful, be careful who to trust, right? What teachers to welcome, we could say, right? And there can be deception involved as well. Okay, now Jupiter tends to, you know, expand things and bring light to whatever it influences, right? So there could be, you know, Scorpio teachers, kind of, you know, Scorpio, what is it, like teachers that have a Scorpion quality, right? Depth and very Martian in a way. Okay, so it can be very enlightening, but it's, you know, it's always good to just be watchful, we could say. Okay, also in respect to children and, you know, teenagers and people who go through you know, transitions, you know, there can be things coming to the surface, right? Children that want to explore, you know, their shadow side, we could say, in Scorpio, right? And also Scorpio is the 8th sign, right? It's the, you know, house of life force, vitalities, and intimacy and sexuality also. Okay, so like in respect to, you know, the husband, for example, these kind of things can come to the surface, right? There can be greater possibility for understanding and depth in respect to those things as well. Okay, same for the paternal grandparents. This is, you know, paternal grandparents is given in Gemini. So this is one of the indicators of Jupiter. And also, you know, Jupiter is an indicator of wealth, and, you know, Scorpio is the original 8th sign. So the 8th house has to do with, you know, people, that money that comes in from other people and this kind of thing, inheritances, etc. Okay, so Jupiter in the 8th house, right, is generally speaking, right, is considered a good placement for devotion, like biting your teeth into something and, you know, staying focused on the path, right? Jupiter in the 8th is very much, you know, about that as well. So yeah, I think that's about it. So now I will, you know, go over what it means for all ascendant signs. Okay. Okay, Jupiter's transit through Scorpio, what does it mean? What does it hold for Aries ascendant? Okay, for Aries, this is happening in their 8th house. Okay, so now, you know, Scorpio is the original 8th sign. So the original 8th sign has to do with, the 8th house has to do with life force, vitality. Okay, in the classics, it is written as fortresses and strongholds, so becoming psychologically strong. Okay, the 8th house is the house of occult, the house of fighting the inner battle. Okay, going deep. Jupiter there can, you know, there can be coming teachers in there, right? Teachers, as I mentioned in the introduction, that have a Martian quality. There can be, you know, deception involved. There can be great depth involved as well. You see, whenever you go deep, you know, you always going to encounter the shadow side as well. Okay, and it's important not to you know, act on it, all right? And but it's important to give it a space and room for development, we could say, for bringing things, you know, to a close, to heal things, all right? And Scorpio is very much about that, and the 8th house is, you know, corresponding to that. It's, you know, has the same significations. You know, Jupiter can have to do with, you know, again, as I mentioned, children can go under transformation. There can be sudden changes in respect to all those the things that I'm discussing, right? So the 8th house has to do with finances that come to you from other people, right? The 8th house is also the house of corporations. So Jupiter in the sign of corporations, right? We could say like this, in the house of corporations. So expansion in respect to those things. Jupiter is all about expanding and gaining understanding and knowledge in respect to those things. So then, you know, teachers, as I mentioned, your wealth, you know, sudden changes, breaks, happenings, you know, good luck is also possible. The 8th house is very unpredictable, okay? So it's all about transformation. You know, things will shift, okay? They're, especially now, you know, we had the eclipses in August, right, which were very, you know, potent and strong. And see, for Aries, this happened in, you know, their, what is it, 5th house and their 11th house. Okay, so the 5th also has, you know, child connotation, creativity, etc. So in respect to those things, now you can further build on whatever Scorpio represents, whatever Jupiter's transit through Scorpio means, right, will tie in, you know, it will tie in with what you experienced, with what you went through during the eclipses. Okay, so you can just, I advise you to look for the connections there, right? Here we see, you know, Jupiter is an indicator of, you know, it's a highly creative planet, Sattvic, it's all about inspiration. So the 5th house Leo, the eclipse there, all right, the silver eclipse was in Leo. So you know, it has also a 5th house connotation for Aries ascendant, right? So, and it's also about children, creativity, and knowledge, okay? And then the 11th has to do in Aquarius there. That was the lunar eclipse, right? This had to do with, you know, groups and social networks and, you know, about your desires, right? The 11th house is the house of desires, what you want to, you know, acquisition of various objects is what the classics give for the 11th house, for example, okay? So, you know, besides me giving, you know, this, I'll just give the information, and I think it's important to look at the eclipses because of their intensity and their, you know, quality of bringing change, and definitely, you know, Jupiter into the 8th house of Scorpio, right, which is all about change, and to tie that in. So there's a lot of things happening for Aries, right? And Jupiter is there in there again as a manifester. It is bringing understanding. It is bringing, you know, a high level of creativity. And so when, you know, light comes in, you know, it always brings out the dark as well. Okay, just wanted to, you know, make that clear, you know. And so interesting time in respect to all those things for Aries ascendant. Okay, now Jupiter also rules, like Jupiter is the lord of, you know, what is it here? The 9th house, right? So it's the 9th lord that's going to transit the 8th house. Okay, so the 9th house also has to do with teachers, right? And with gaining knowledge and understanding and higher learning and, you know, this kind of thing. So Jupiter in the 8th, there's changes in respect to those things as well. Okay, because, you know, Scorpio is again the 8th house, and it indicates changes, right? Sudden changes, unpredictable changes. And okay, Jupiter is a benefic, right? It is, and it is in a good dignity in Scorpio sign. So, you know, see how this plays out. It's a positive thing, definitely changeable, okay? Then also Jupiter rules the 12th house for Aries ascendant. So in respect to losses, right? In respect to, you know, imagination, getting away of the troubles of the world, right? The 12th house is also a moksha house, a house of liberation. So the 12th board, which is, you know, as I mentioned, moksha, goes to the 8th house, which is also a moksha house. So there's going to be, you know, evolution. There's going to be, you know, creative changes, how should I put it? There's going to be depth, there's going to be focus on liberation, getting away from the troubles of the world, liberating yourself from all kinds of losses and troubles, right, which are indicated by the 12th house. The 12th house is also the house of vacations, you know, letting go of the old, okay, and before we elevate, right? 12th house, it's Pisces, right? It's all about elevation. So all these things will play out can play out for Aries ascendant. Now it's going to depend on your personal horoscope as well, of course, and so these are general indications. But you know, generally speaking, you will see that these things will be touching ground. Okay. Okay, that's enough for Aries ascendant. Let's now move on to Taurus ascendant. Okay, for Taurus ascendant, Jupiter will be transiting their 7th house. Okay, the 7th house is all about relationships, one-on-one relationships, right? It's the 180 degrees away from the ascendant there, and so it's the furthest away from the ascendant, from the body. So it represents the body of the other, right? The spouse, or all one-on-one relationships. So trade and business relationships, all these are seen from the 7th house. So Jupiter will be giving manifesting strength there, right? It's going to definitely bring relationships to the forefront. It's going to manifest relationships. Okay, of course, it's going to depend on what Jupiter does in the Saptamsha as well as the Navamsha. Especially, you know, for a woman, we're going to look at the Saptamsha, and for a man, we're going to look at Navamsha in respect to one-on-one, relationships, we could say. 7th house is also the house of sex and intercourse, conceiving, right? If you want to get pregnant, etc. Jupiter as an indicator of children is definitely, a manifesting influence there. Okay, so it's happening in the sign of Scorpio. So you mix those combinations in these meanings well, right? So, but the 7th house is very much about whatever you project onto the world, right? And this is what you will get back. And so Jupiter is a blessing there. You can expect, possibilities and things that come to fruition there, okay? And there will be depth, right? Scorpio definitely indicates that. And again, Mars is there, so there's going to be cutting cords in respect to those things. And at the same time, because of that, new things will come, because Jupiter is all about creation, creativity, creating the new, more understanding in respect to those things, in respect to your partner, your children, your grandparents, etc. Okay. Also, it can give more business relationships, right? Jupiter, as it's always expanding that. So opportunities in respect to those things, one-on-one relationships, and gaining understanding, right? Whatever you project out there, again, is the 7th house. So and Jupiter in there, magnifying this, and so you will learn much about yourself, right? Jupiter is looking at your 1st house. It's looking at your body. You're looking at your appearance, your swadharma, your natural inclination, who you are, what you want to achieve in this particular moment in time, right? And so a lot of opportunities for Taurus ascendant for sure. Okay, so now Jupiter rules for Taurus. What does Jupiter rule? It rules the 8th house. Okay, so we have the 8th lord in the 7th. Okay, the 8th lord the 8th house has to do with changes, right? Sudden changes, we could say. It's also, as I mentioned, a moksha house, right? It has to do with liberation, getting away from the troubles of the world. So the 8th lord, which is Jupiter for Taurus ascendant, goes to the 7th house. So changes in respect to relationships is indicated as well. Changes in the respect to all the things that I mentioned before, right, are indicated, are possible, because the 8th lord goes to the 7th house. Okay, and Scorpio is all about change. So see, all these meanings add up, and so depending on your personal horoscope, but it's it will change. But generally speaking, these things will come to fruition. These things will manifest. Okay. Now Jupiter also rules the 11th house for Taurus ascendant. Okay, so and it goes to the 11th lord goes to the 7th house. Okay, so the 11th house has to do with social networks, your desires, right? Worldly desires, acquisition of various objects is given in the classics. So, it's about a house that grows over time because it's an upachaya. So things that grow over time, like titles and recognition, right? All these things are seen from the 11th house. And so the 11th Lord goes to the 7th. So, because the 7th is a house of one-on-one relationships, right? It's a social house, we could say. So the 11th house is also that. So, you can expect more of this in your one-on-one relationships. Okay, so 11th Lord, the desire. See, the 11th house is desire. Okay, as I mentioned. So when the 11th Lord goes to the 7th house, there can be desire for a partner, for example. This is one way to look at it. Okay, so Jupiter is the husband for a man, right? For a woman, excuse me, and also in respect to children and in respect to what Jupiter represents, all right? Jupiter is also an indicator of wealth. The 11th house has to do with money, right? It's the house of gains. And so, we have two, meanings here in respect to gains and wealth and money. Jupiter represents also that. And so, you can expect growth in respect to those things, okay? Yeah, so I think that's enough now for Taurus ascendant. Now let's move on to Gemini ascendant. For Gemini, Jupiter will be transiting their 6th house, right? The 6th house is the house of, it's a house of intelligence, becoming more intelligent, because we need to deal with the struggles of the world, right? So the 6th house deals with struggle, with accidents and injuries and cuts and debts and paying our dues and hard work, we could say. And because we have that, because we need to develop those things, we need to deal with those things, we become intelligent. So in Gemini, the 6th house is very much associated with the house of intelligence, so becoming smarter, more efficient, right? And gaining insight in respect to those things, because Jupiter is all about insight and understanding. So you will be able to solve your problems. Jupiter is going to bless that house, right? Because it's a manifestor, it's the great benefic. It wants to, whatever it influences, it wants to expand, it wants to understand, it wants to look for solutions. It's a highly creative planet. And so, Jupiter going to the 6th, will definitely bring light there. Whatever you need to solve will be under the influence. See, generally speaking, like a benefic in the 6th house, like in the difficult houses, is not considered a great placement, because we need malefics, right? Tamasic planets that can deal with struggle and extreme burden to take care of these houses. But see, whatever Jupiter comes, it's always manifesting. It's always giving ideas. It's highly creative. So, and definitely in Scorpio, because it's in a good dignity there, right? Because Mars, again, is a friend of Jupiter, and it's welcoming Jupiter there to express whatever it needs in the most effective manner. And so it's a very positive setting, and see, all settings are positive in the sense that they're there, right? So we need to learn from it. But you can expect opportunities in respect to those things, problem solving, healing, right? Whatever got injured, whatever debt you have, will lessen in, because of Jupiter transiting Scorpio there. Okay, now Jupiter rules for Gemini ascendant. Jupiter rules the 7th house. So we have the 7th Lord that goes to the 6th house. So in respect to relationships, one-on-one relationships, the husband, the spouse, in respect to sex, because the 7th house is about intercourse. Long distance travel is also important, right? Is also seen from the 7th house. The 7th Lord goes to the 6th house for Gemini ascendant. So, it can, and also Jupiter is, the indicator of spouse, children, all the things that I mentioned in the introduction. All these can be under, will be under the influence of the 6th house. So there could be struggle involved, right? There could be solving, you need to solve problems, or your husband goes through a time that, needs healing, for example, or there's some debts or this kind of thing happening. Okay, so the seventh lord going to the sixth house is possible, and definitely because, you know, Scorpio is the house, the original eighth sign, so it's a sign of transformation, changes, depth. All right, ruled by Mars, so Mars is also an indicator of you know, yeah, like accidents, I would say. Now, I don't want to, you know, be negative, but it's, you know, it's a possibility. But Jupiter is a blesser, right? It's the great benefic, and whatever needs to happen there, whatever karma needs to come to fruition, Jupiter will make protect that. Well, it's the best thing to have Jupiter in a sign, right? Because it's going to give its strength, its manifestation, and it's going to give its blessings. It's going to give its knowledge and understanding and respect to those things. So whatever needs to come up there will be blessed by Jupiter. Okay, so then for Gemini, Jupiter also rules the 10th house. It is, right? Yeah, it's in the 10th house. So in respect to career, in respect to the great deeds you perform, the respect you get, in respect to the actions of your father, for example, and authority figures, you know, there could be, you know, also some, you know, taking care of. It can come to the surface that things must be taken care of. Okay, so the 10th lord goes to the sixth house as well. Okay, so becoming more efficient, learning about new things, right? Becoming more intelligent in 10th house affairs, right? And how to deal with earning respect, for example, how to deal with becoming more effective in the world, right? The 10th house is your deeds, it's the karma bhava, as we say. It has to do with your action in the world, you're performing your great deeds. So how to become more effective with that, right? It can be, you know, the 10th house and the sixth, right? How to solve problems in respect to those things. And Jupiter will be giving definitely will be giving opportunities to grow in respect to those things. Okay, right, then that's enough for Gemini ascendant. Let's move on to Cancer ascendant. Now for Cancer, Jupiter will be transiting their fifth house. Okay, now what is the fifth house? The fifth house is the house of knowledge, right? You know, it's the house of you know, consistency, we could say, because, you know, it's ruled, you know, original fifth sign, Leo, is ruled by the sun, and the sun is all about consistency. Okay, and so Jupiter going to the fifth house, Jupiter being, you know, an indicator of children, fifth house, you know, in respect to children, there can be changes in respect to creativity, right? Because the fifth house is all about creativity, right? And children is one of the expressions of creativity, right? And learning new things. You know, the fifth house is also about amulets like yantra and mantra, and all these sorts of spiritual practices. So being consistent on the path, it will bring inspiration. The fifth house is a dharma house, right? It's a house of inspiration. And so Jupiter going there, learning new things, and Scorpio Sun is always indicating more depth in respect to those things. So it's a very good placement for Jupiter to be, right? And I mean, Jupiter is always, you know, it's the great benefic, right? It's always positive to have Jupiter in conjuncting a sign. And so, but because it's also a Dharma house, and because Jupiter is a Sattvic planet, right? It deals with inspiration. It's highly creative. It will bring opportunities in respect to learning new things, right? In respect to dealing with children, dealing with the husband, right? For a woman or a homosexual man, dealing with, you know, wealth, and dealing with also paternal grandparents, as I mentioned in the introduction, and your knowledge, expanding your knowledge, right? So maybe you need to go and learn something new, for example. Okay. Now for Cancer ascendant, Jupiter rules the sixth house, right? Sagittarius, and also it rules the ninth house. So we see that the sixth lord goes to the fifth house, right? And this is also worthwhile mentioning. is that the sixth house deals with, you know, intelligence, okay, becoming more intelligent by tackling the problems of the world, right? So the sixth lord, like injuries, cuts, accidents, is seen paying your, you know, dues and depth is seen from the sixth house. So the sixth lord goes to the fifth house. So this, well, you know, can mean that there can be, you know, some trouble can rise, right, in respect to fifth house affairs, right? Because and you know, the things that I mentioned about the fifth house being children, knowledge, etc. So there could be a struggle involved. But see, the fifth and the sixth houses are both houses of intelligence. So there's going to be learning, definitely learning, and Jupiter is an indicator of learning and knowledge, right? So there's going to be learning involved in respect to fifth house affairs for sure. Okay. And so, so when I say the sixth house, it's not it's not a negative thing. It's just that we need this balance of work, of struggle and relief, right? So this is the fifth house is a pleasurable house. It's, you know, again, a dharma house. Things tend to play out with ease, but the sixth house is, you know, it's kind of a difficult house in the sense that we need to take care of problems, etc. So it's a good combination to have the sixth lord in the fifth, right? Because we're going to learn about this and we're going to become more inspired because of tackling those problems, right? It can create great relief to overcome certain problems and learn from this. And Jupiter is definitely bringing opportunities to solve problems, and, you know, in respect to all those things. So it's going to be very positive. And then for Cancer, Jupiter also rules the ninth house. Okay, so we have the ninth lord going to the fifth house, which is great. It's all Dharma, right? You know, first house Cancer is the Dharma house, Pisces the ninth, and Scorpio the fifth. So that's a that's a trine, right? So the ninth lord goes to the fifth house. So higher learning, right? The ninth house represents higher learning and teachers and gurus, and Jupiter is the natural indicator of that, going to the fifth house. So there's going to be probably coming some teachers on the path, or some new study which will, you know, elevate you, right? Which will make you understand things, and making sure that you are able to put things in a greater perspective, and Jupiter is going to bless that, and Jupiter is the indicator of that. So it's all pointing in that direction. So that's a great, right, for Cancer ascendant. So it's going to be a great time. Also remember that Cancer is a sign of foreign affairs, like foreign countries, right? This is given in Gemini, so there could be some travel, because the ninth house is also about inspirational travel, of course, right? Going into the fifth house, maybe you go to you know, a conference, or something that inspires you, right? Because if we look at Cancer, you can also always take that into account, okay? And so this is a very positive change for Cancer ascendant, especially, again, because Jupiter is going to be in a good dignity, because Mars is a friend of Jupiter, right, in Scorpio. And so teachers that have a Scorpionic quality, a Martian quality, and it's going to be happening in the fifth house. Now, the sixth lord is also involved, as I mentioned, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, right? So there could be some, you know, push-pull struggle involved. And you see that Saturn will be transiting, you know, Capricorn at the end of 2017. So we're going to have the seventh lord in the sixth. It's going to move to the seventh. It's going to be very positive. And this also has a foreign connotation, right? Long distance travel. And so, you know, when Saturn transits Capricorn there's going to be some relief in respect to, you know, whatever Cancer had been struggling with, you know, for sure. And then, you know, sixth lord in the fifth is a nice change also. Okay, so it's going to it looks very, very positive. This is my feeling. Okay, now let's move on from Cancer ascendant to Leo ascendant. For Leo, Jupiter will be transiting their fourth house. Okay, now we're going to have this is great for you know, affairs involving your home, right? The fourth house is, you know, again, the house that is below, right? What is deep within you, deep within your heart. Okay, and so for Leo has it's a very personal sign, right? It's a highly creative sign as well, but their emotional life can also be very turbulent because it is ruled by Scorpio, right? And Scorpio is all about depth, and it's about also very much about fighting the inner battle. And the fourth house is the heart, right? So Scorpio is, the heart is in the sign of Scorpio, we could say, and so there's great transformation going on. Even though, see, Leo is a consistent, I mean, it's ruled by the sun, and it's a consistent planet, right? So Leo ascendant tends to be consistent, but at the same time, so it's this nice balance. The fourth house, whatever is deep within them, what they crave for, what is, you know, what their heart wants to express, is under the influence of Scorpio, right? So it's kind of nice to see how these signs balance each other out. And so, but you know, we have Jupiter transiting the fourth house, and this is great because, you know, fourth house is all about feeling happy, about your feeling, right? It's also nourishment, like, you know, the fourth house is seen, you know, mother is seen from the fourth house, right? And also vehicles are seen from the fourth house. But most importantly, what you deeply crave for, and what you want to express, the feelings of happiness. And so Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio there is definitely going to make you feel better. No doubt about it, okay? It's going to expand things in respect to what your heart wants to express. And Jupiter is, again, a highly creative planet. It's a Sattvic planet. So it's going to a cardinal house, right? It's going to a cardinal, meaning that it's one of the building blocks. It's one of the cornerstones, the things that make you who you are. It's a very important part of your identity. And so Jupiter will be, you know, manifesting there. It will be bringing opportunities. It will make you feel lighter in your heart, whatever you have been struggling with, right? Because you see, Saturn has been transiting Leo's fifth house, and the fifth is about feeling light also, right? It's like a joy. It's a house that is related to joy and, you know, romantic, creative endeavors, etc. And so Saturn, you know, is, you know, the sixth lord there for Leo has been transiting their fifth house, and still, right, till the end of 2017. So it's, you know, it can be a struggle, right? It can be heavy, right? Seeing the negative or feeling not able to feel light in the heart, we could say. Now Jupiter going into Scorpio is going from October 10th, right, is going to change that. You'll see there will be a gradual build up, and then when Saturn enters you know, their sixth house, Saturn does well in the sixth house. It's a good placement for health and, you know, becoming, you know, dealing with the struggles of life. Saturn is a good place, especially in its own sign there. And you're going to have Jupiter transiting Scorpio for a whole year and bringing light and joy to your heart and understanding in what you want to express and create. Okay, so very positive change for Leo ascendant. Now, so Jupiter rules the fifth house for, again, right? Jupiter rules the fifth house for Leo ascendant. So the fifth lord goes to the fourth house. So fifth house is all about Dharma and inspiration. And we have a, you know, a trinal lord going to an angle house. So that's fine. That's great because that's a good combination. You know, it's going to reinforce that of feelings of feeling more light and happy. Okay, so it's really, it's like that. So very positive. Now, for Leo, Jupiter also rules the eighth house. So the eighth lord is the lord of changes, as I mentioned, right? So the eighth lord goes to the fourth house as well. So there can be changes in respect to your home, in respect to the mother, in respect to, again, what you want to express in your life. You're going to come in a phase in your life, depending, of course, on the horoscope, on your personal horoscope, where you will be propelled to do what you want, what you deeply feel. And, you know, the eighth lord in the fourth house, and the eighth house being the house of liberation, right? Going into the fourth, into your heart, right? It's going to liberate your heart. And especially because Jupiter, the great benefic, is, you know, transiting. It is Jupiter that is transiting that. And Jupiter has all these meanings, right? As a natural indicator, but also as, you know, the fifth and eighth lord. So we're going to, you know, mix those meanings as well. And it looks very positive, okay? Again, because Saturn will be going out the 5th house for you, and it will be transiting your 6th house in its own house, which makes its dignity great. It becomes a manifester as well, and it's good for health, and it's good for tackling problems, because we need malefics in the difficult houses to tackle the problems. Right? Okay, so great. Now, I think that's enough for Leo ascendant sign. Okay. Now let's move to Virgo ascendant. For Virgo, Jupiter will be transiting their 3rd house. What is the 3rd house? There will be opportunities. Again, Jupiter is the great manifester in respect to learning new things, in respect to, the 3rd house is Upadesha, learning new things, initiatory instructions, like learning the ABC, learning a new language, learning new skills, learning to play an instrument, right? The 3rd house is all about the performing arts, learning something new, okay? And it can have a technical quality, because the 3rd house is the house of technical intelligence, okay? The 6th is also about that, but it's more about tackling problems of the world. And the 5th house is all about your creative intelligence, okay? So Jupiter will be transiting the 3rd house, so learning new things. The 3rd house is, about competition, right? Ambition. It is the house of developing your strength and your will and your courage, right? It's ruled by Mars, and Mars is all about will and courage, right? So, so Jupiter will be expanding all those things. Also, the 3rd house relates to short trips, right? So Jupiter can make, that you need to travel more, like, Jupiter is always expanding. It's always means always more, we could say, okay? The 3rd house also in the classics say that one of the things that is described as deprivation of parents. So whatever your parents go through will be under a good influence of Jupiter, a healing influence, more understanding in respect to those things. Jupiter is going to give opportunities to become more courageous, to learn things. It's all about, 3rd house is the house of competition, right? In fact, the 7th house is the house of trade, okay, business. But the 3rd house is the house of competition. So, in these times, there's a lot of competition for companies, between companies and between whatever you want to do. It needs ambition and competition, right? And so the 3rd house is Upachaya house, right? It's not necessarily the most light house. It's also the house of servants. With the most light, it's not the lightest house. It's an Upachaya house, so it involves some struggle. You see, the Dharma houses mean that the 1, 5, and 9, they are all about ease and inspiration. And the 3rd and like the 11th, 10th, they're Upachaya houses, so they need work, right? They need, like, competition is a good thing, but intrinsically it has a dubious quality to it as well. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be negative, but this is why the 3rd house is associated with, and not with Dharma, right, but with it grows over time. We need to put the work in, we need to put effort in, and it needs care, we could say, because it can go either way with these houses, okay? It can, when there's too much desire, too much ambition, too much competition, it tends to disrupt your natural inclination, okay? Success can be tricky, okay, in this sense, and this is seen from, the Upachaya houses. Now, but they are necessary, right? So just, you know what I mean. So Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio in the 3rd house, opportunities to expand business, okay, opportunities. Also, the 3rd house is about employees. So like you're gonna have good luck, good opportunities with employees, right? Jupiter is a masculine planet, can be people that really do something, right? Masculine planets, they want to do something on an external level, right? Also, maybe your children will learn new things, right? Jupiter, an indicator of children, or the husband will learn new things, or maybe the paternal grandparents will new things, or there will be coming things to the surface, all right? I think that's about it for the 3rd house. Okay, so that's Jupiter. Now, Virgo. For Virgo, Jupiter rules the fourth house. So we have the fourth lord into the third house. So in respect to fourth house affairs, so in respect, you know, in order to become fulfilled on an emotional level, which is all about the fourth house, right? It's what you crave for, what is deep within you. There could be some work, you know, that you need to attend, okay, some learning new things about that, okay. The third house, the fourth lord, in respect to your home, for example, there could be some changes in the sense that maybe you need to fix some things there, because Jupiter is the fourth lord there. It's going into the third house. So this kind of thing. So maybe you're going to learn new things to feel better, for example, to feel more light, okay. And Scorpio, you know, is all about depth and all about you know, changes, because again, it's the original 8th sign, so there's some changes involved because of, you know, the Scorpio dimension, okay. So change in respect to home, in respect to what you want to express from the heart. And maybe you're gonna have to learn some new technical skills, or learning something new, or, you know, developing courage in respect to those things, to, you know, achieve that, okay. And also, you know, for Virgo ascendant, Saturn has been transiting their fourth house, and Saturn is always, you know, where you need to put your responsibilities. It can feel a bit heavy, okay. And so, end of 2017, Saturn will be transiting Virgo's fifth house, so it will be going out of that. So then the fourth lord in the third will, express. It will bring opportunities around or in respect to what you need, okay, what you need to feel happy, okay, because Saturn can drain that in a little bit, you know, especially in the fourth house, or in respect to your home. There could be some, you know, troubles or things that, you know, were delayed, or that just didn't feel very light. Now Saturn moving out of the fourth is going to change that, okay. It's going to enter into the fifth house in its own sign. It's going to be and a great dignity there. And so that's not really have a lot more for Jupiter in the third there. But Jupiter also rules the seventh house for Virgo, right? And so we're going to have the seventh lord in the third house as well. So I feel that for Virgo, generally speaking, right, so the seventh house deals with, you know, relationships, one-on-one relationships, long-distance travel, everything that you project out there, right? Also intercourse, but, you know, also trade and, you know, business relationships. And so the seventh lord in the third house there in Scorpio, again, Scorpio can always indicate changes, sudden ups and downs in respect to those things. Jupiter is also an indicator of wealth, and so it can go many, many ways. But the seventh lord in the third is, you know, when we look at the third house, right, it's an upachaya, so there is some effort involved, right? That this may be a way of putting it. So in respect to all these seventh house affairs, there could, you will probably have to use your intelligence, right? The third house being a house of intelligence, to tackle whatever problems come up in respect to those things. Now, Jupiter is always a manifester, so it's going to manifest in respect to those things, but it will have this third house dimension to it, right? It will have this, the way to go about this will be in an upachaya way, meaning that you will have to put effort into it, right? And from putting effort into it and applying your intelligence, things will grow, right? And this is because the third house is an upachaya house. It's a growing house over time. So I feel that for Virgo, things will progress as, you know, Jupiter transits the sign of Scorpio, okay? And Jupiter is, you know, the indicator of progress. It is going to make things manifest. It is going to make things grow in respect to all those things. But the way it's going to go, it will manifest. And it's also in good dignity there. So that's another plus point. But, you know, there will be, it will require effort, okay? Effort and courage. courage to and ambition and competition to tackle those problems, or to not really problems, but to tackle whatever comes up for you in respect to those things. Okay, so you know, the third house is always a little bit, you need to think about it a little bit, and it's not it's not a trine house, it's not a dharma house, it's a house that requires our a little bit of patience and work to go about, you know, to come to great solutions. Okay, that's enough for Virgo ascendant. Now let's move on to Libra ascendant. For Libra, Jupiter will be transiting their second house. Okay, the second house is all about whatever supports you on your life path, right? Whatever supports the first house is the second house, right? Jupiter is an indicator of wealth, right? So the second house is all about wealth, right? Your resources, whatever you need to support you. So the food you take in, right? Your close family, your close friends. You know, it's also given in the classics, collections, right? It's a, you know, an expression of wealth, gems and stones and this kind of thing. So, but, you know, look at it, whatever you need to bring you further on the path, your swadharma, which is the first house, right? So your natural inclination, what you want to express. So Jupiter is definitely a great placement in the sign of Scorpio because it's in a good dignity there. Mars is ruling Scorpio, so it will, you know, make Jupiter really act in the best way possible. Of course, it's going to depend on your personal horoscope, right? Because, you know, when we look at your personal horoscope, we're going to look at the divisional charts, which specifically relate to finances, for example, whatever you need and to, you know, make you stronger on the path. But it's a great placement for making more money, right? Whatever you need to support yourself. Maybe great friends, you know, will come into your life, or your friends will in some way be very Jupiterian, right? They will support you. Maybe if you need resources, they will give it to you, this kind of thing. Scorpio, again, is the original 8th sign, so it deals with money that comes in from other people, but also what you need from other people. And it can also just be careful also, because, you know, Scorpio has this, you know, dual extreme nature as well. But Jupiter going in there, definitely manifesting in respect to those things. Again, look at the house cusps that fall in there. So if the third cusp falls in there, for example, and look at the explanation for the third house as well. But you can expect gains in, you know, you can expect gains on a financial level and on a psychological level. The second house is also the name you get, right? It's your value, in that sense, self-value, right? It's the name you get from your ancestor, for example, right, is seen from the second house. But, you know, it means also self-value, also on a psychological level. You know, your value will go up, we could say, because of Jupiter there in good dignity, expanding and gaining, you know, understanding and knowledge in respect to maybe how to get more finances and this kind of thing. Okay, and Scorpio is, you know, also a sign of corporations, and it has all these connotations as well. So that's very positive for Libra ascendant. Now, Jupiter, all for Libra ascendant, rules the third house, okay, and it rules the sixth house. So we see that, you know, the third house, you know, again, has to do with learning new things. It's about your technical intelligence, right? Dealing with employees, short trips, right? It's business, competition, ambition, also deprivation of parents, okay? So we have the third lord in the second house there. So Jupiter being expanding that, the third lord is, you know, an upachaya house, so it always involves work, right? It always involves time, right? Upachaya means it grows over time. So the third lord, you know, in the second house is you're gonna have to work for it, right? And as we see Jupiter transiting to the sign of Scorpio, things will tend to manifest more and more, of course, depending on your own natal chart, right? But we have the third lord in the second house. Just wanted to briefly touch on that. And also the sixth lord. So we have the two houses of intelligence, right? The sixth house deals with struggle and, you know, becoming more intelligent because of the struggle, right? in the second house. So we have the sixth, the third, and the sixth lords in the second house. So it's gonna, you know, expand resources, but there can be problems in the sense that problem solving, you probably need to solve problems in respect to those things, and because of that, you're going to be gaining, because you know the second house is all about gaining. And so yeah, you can expect that become applying your intelligence to gain whatever you need to support you on your life path. Let's resume it like this. This will be very much coming to the forefront. And again, it's going to depend on your natal horoscope as well, okay? Because we're going to have to look at the divisional charts. So, okay, I think that's enough for Libra ascendant. Okay. Now, Jupiter transit through the sign of Scorpio, what does it hold for Scorpio ascendant, right? This is going to be great for Scorpio because Jupiter will be blessing, you know, Scorpio's ascendant, right? The ascendant, you know, is your body and your appearance, right? It's your natural inclination, your swadharma, we could say, okay? Again, the first house is very important, you know, for expressing what you really want to express in this life, okay? Again, the first house is numerologically related to the 10th house, right? They both carry the number 1. So if we look at career, we're not only going to look at the 10th house, but also at the first house, okay? So Jupiter will be transiting Scorpio. So, you know, for people, there will be people with Scorpio ascendant that will have, you know, great opportunities, right, in respect to what they want to accomplish on their life path. Jupiter is, again, it's a manifester, right? It wants to manifest whatever it conjuncts, whatever it aspects. And so you will be clear on what to do, what the next step to take in respect to your creative expression in the world, okay? And then, you know, Jupiter is in a great dignity, and a good dignity there, again, because Mars is a natural friend towards Jupiter. So Mars is going to make sure that Jupiter is able to express effectively what he needs to express, okay? And Jupiter is all about gaining knowledge and understanding about the life path there on the ascendant. So that's great, right? Also for your health, because Jupiter, you know, gets directional strength in the first house. It's a great protecting influence. And so a lot of opportunities for going and following your inspirations, because the first house is an inspirational house, right? It's a Dharma house. And it's also an angle, right? It's both a trine and an angle. So trines and angles are associated with Dharma, right? Inspiration and action. So putting your inspirations into action. And Mars, you know, the ruler of Scorpio, is all about action, okay? Exerting your whatever is within you, whatever is within your consciousness. Okay, so that's great news for Scorpio. Now, you know, Scorpio, so Jupiter rules the second house for Scorpio, right? And it also rules the fifth house, right? And so we have the second lord coming into the first house, right? So the second house is what you need to support you on your life path, right? Like close friends, family, resources, and wealth, etc. Okay, so the second lord comes to the first house, so these things will come to you. These things are things that will be center stage, we could say, that will become important, right? And Jupiter is, you know, a benefic, it's a manifester there. So in respect to those things, there will be focus on those things, okay? So, you know, Saturn has been transiting, you know, the second house for Scorpio. And so Saturn is always where you need to pay your dues, right? Where you have responsibilities. Saturn can be a delaying influence as well, okay? And so Saturn will be transiting the sign of Scorpio in, you know, the end of 2017, and it will enter its own sign. It will become a manifester, right? So in respect to skills, for example, right, you can expect manifestation from the end of 2017 onwards. But you see, because Saturn will leave the second house there for Scorpio, and Jupiter rules the second house and goes to the first house and will be in great dignity, there will be expansion and elevation in respect to finances and whatever you need to support you on your life path. So it's very, very positive news for Scorpio ascendants, okay? Then also Jupiter rules the fifth house for Scorpio, and the fifth house is, again, also it's a Dharma house, okay? So the first, the fifth, and the ninth houses are the Dharma houses. They deal with inspiration, with ease, we could say. And so the fifth house is all about knowledge, right? Your creative intelligence, being consistent on the path, and learning new things, right? Also spiritual practices like yantra, mantra are seen from the fifth house. Children, creativity, right? All these things, will be a focal area for Scorpio ascendant, and all these things, are coming to you. They're coming on your ascendant. They're coming. There will be focus. There will be, very much opening, the way, the path. For you, and in respect to all these things, right? Jupiter is also the husband for heterosexual woman and for a homosexual man. So for there can be the spouse is coming. It's going to be playing a prominent role on your life path. Is one of the things that we can see from this, right? Learning new things again that will help you on your path, right? Being the second and also the fifth. So whatever you need is the second house, for example. So, knowledge, gaining understanding. Jupiter is the natural indicator of that. The fifth house expresses that. The second house as well. So, I feel that for Scorpio ascendant, they're going to have a great time, right? Especially when Saturn is going to move out of their second house, in its own sign in the third house, and so on. Jupiter, being such a great manifester for all these things. So wonderful. Yeah, and so I think that's enough for Scorpio ascendant. Now, let's move on to Sagittarius ascendant. For Sagittarius, Jupiter will be transiting their 12th house. Okay, what is the 12th house? The 12th house is the house of vacations, right? Long-term investments, getting away from the troubles of the world, right? That's the 12th house. It's a moksha house. Moksha means liberation. It also deals with losses and expenses. We always need to, let go of the old to renew and to become whole and to elevate, we could say, all right? This is also seen from the 12th house. And so, Jupiter is a great inspiration, right? It's a sattvic planet, so it's going to bring, it's a good spiritual placement to have, Jupiter in the 12th house in a good dignity there. Inspiration, new ideas, spending time alone in meditation to, elevate, to come to new ideas. And it's, kind of getting away from the troubles of the world. And you see, next year, Jupiter will be transiting the sign of, Sagittarius. And so it's also known that, when Jupiter's in the 12th house, you let something go, something old go, right? And Jupiter, it's a manifest, right? It's going to give opportunities. It's going to give you insight and knowledge about how to proceed further on the path. And then when it enters your sign, right, your ascendant sign, it's going to focus, it's going to bring focus on the path, and it's going to, transit its, first house, its own sign there, Sagittarius in 2018, right? So around about, November of 2018. But now is the time to, get inspired, spend time alone, contemplate, right? The moksha houses are also about liberation, but also, they're about liberation, but Jupiter is as again, it's highly creative. It's a sattvic planet, so it's going to give you insight into to what is no longer you know, serving you on your path, what is no longer fulfilling you. And then you see Scorpio, you know, is the sign that deals with transformation and with changes also. Okay, so maybe you know, take some time off, maybe you you know, prepare to close some chapters that will you know, bring you to where you need to be, right? And see, Jupiter is also the indicator of children or the husband, right? Or teachers or this kind of thing. So you can, you know, meet great teachers like with a Scorpion quality, right? In ashrams, because the 12th house also rules ashrams. People that, you know, show you how to get deeper within within you, right? And or also the husband or children may there could be a distance from that as well, or but it doesn't have to play out like that, right? Because Jupiter is always a manifestor, but in some respect it could be you know, inspirational. Maybe there's some how should I put it? It's not necessarily separation from, you know, what Jupiter represents as children, but you could feel maybe a more of a distance, you know, or concerning these things, and because you're preparing for something new. Okay, and also, you know, Saturn has been transiting Sagittarius for the last couple of years, and the end of 2017, Saturn will be going out of Sagittarius. I mean, Saturn in Sagittarius, you know, is, you know, it can be a delaying influence. It can be, you know, a heavy transits when Saturn is on your ascendant in respect to your health and, you know, your whatever you want to express, you know, in your life path, in your swadharma, your natural inclination. And so you'll see that, you know, Jupiter will bring inspiration, and the 12th house has to do with imagination, right? And it's beyond this world, we could say, like dreams and visions, and just take the time for this year to renew, we could say, to get inspired, and keep it, you know, it will grow from deep within you, right? It's like the 12th house is like hidden, right? And it will grow, and as you know, Jupiter transits the sign of Scorpio, this will grow, the inspiration, the ideas you will get to bring you further on your life path, right? And you know, when it will enter your own sign, Sagittarius, right, the ascendant, there's going to be great manifesting potential. So it's like elevation. This is a time to elevate, to let go of the old, to contemplate about the losses that you've suffered, we could say, or and to gain understanding about this, and this will bring you further, and it will be a wonderful time. See, Saturn transiting your second house becomes a manifestor, right? Because it's going to, you know, any planet that is, you know, conjunct its own sign becomes manifesting to that sign. So in respect to finances, etc., Saturn will be giving opportunities, and, you know, Saturn can be a delaying influence as well, but when it transits its own sign, it really becomes manifesting. Okay, so it's a nice mixture there. There will also be, you know, from in the 2018 onwards, right? Jupiter will be transiting Scorpio from October 2017, then Saturn end of 2017 will transit Scorpio, Capricorn. So there will be two manifesting planets, you know, for a whole year onto your second house, right? And so now I'm talking about Jupiter and Scorpio, right? But just wanted to mention this because, you know, Saturn on the ascendant is really making you aware of time, right? Father time, we could say, and of, you know, taking care of your health. And it can be, you know, challenging in that sense, but things are going to light up for sure, okay? And whatever you need to support in your life path in 2018 will be highly manifesting. Okay, it will be very worthwhile, and it will propel you into new directions and new ways of you know, going about what you want to express. And then, you know, in time when Jupiter transits Sagittarius, it's going to be like really coming to fruition. Okay, now Jupiter for Sagittarius rules the fourth house, right? And it rules its first house. Okay, so Now, so it's the first lord in the 12th. That's what I mean with, you know, being away from the world, we could say, or feeling a little bit, you know, wanting to take the time to spend more time alone, right, to contemplate, because it's the first lord, right, your body and your path in the 12th house, right? So maybe you take a long vacation or something like that, or this kind of thing. You're going to invest, right? The 12th house is long-term investment. So the first lord in the 12th is you and your life path, how you see yourself, your inclination, what you really want to express, will be, you'll be investing time in it, because, you know, Jupiter is, you know, wants to, you know, invest time, right? It wants, it's how should I put it? It is it's all about long-term planning. You see what I mean? So it's just a great transit. You'll see, you know, now it's going to depend, of course, on your personal horoscope as well. You know, this is a general forecast, but, you know, generally speaking, this will, you know, come to fruition. So Jupiter is the first lord. It's also the fourth lord. So, you know, maybe there's some changes in respect to your house, because, you know, Scorpio is the sign of changes in the 12th house, the fourth lord in 12. It could be, you know, you being away from home, excuse me, for example, or there could be maybe some expenses in respect to your home, or some losses in respect to your home. Maybe, you know, the fourth house is also the mother, right? Or what you want, what you deeply crave for, right? So fourth house is that, right? It's the house that is below what is deep within you. It's your heart, what your heart wants to express. So I feel it's going to be a time of deep contemplation, wanting to change things, and prepare for this, like this great inner preparation that is going on for Sagittarius ascendant. Okay, fourth house also rules vehicles and, you know, emotional contentment. So there's going to be contemplation, and, you know, Scorpio is the sign of transformation, sudden changes, right? Intimacy, and all these things will be under review, we could say. And so I think it will be a very positive change, you know, for Sagittarius ascendant. Okay, okay, enough for Sagittarius ascendant. Let's move on to Capricorn ascendant. Okay, for Capricorn, Jupiter will be transiting their 11th house, right? So what is the 11th house? The 11th house is the house of, you know, social networks. The house of, it's like friends, but friends that you go out with, in that sense, a larger social network. The classics say that acquisition of various objects, which means that whatever you desire on a worldly level, okay, like the 11th house is also an upachaya, which means it grows over time, right? Like recognition, titles, right? They grow over time, recognition. 11th house is also domesticated animals, so, you know, you get a gain from. So the 11th house is gains, right? It's very close, you know. It's the second house and the 11th are the finance house. It's also the 8th, right? Money that comes in to you from others. The 7 is also, you know, one-on-one relationships. But the 2nd and the 11th, let's say, are the most, you know, prominent finance houses, we could say. And so in respect to gains, right, so the, you know, with the 11th house is the gains that come in before they get taxed, etc. What's in your income, really, like when you're self-employed, etc. So this is a great placement, because Jupiter is going to give abundance there. It's going to give growth, elevation, gaining understanding about all these 11th house affairs, right? Because it's happening in the 11th house. So it's going to make that house manifest. And, you know, of course, all the cusps that fall in there as well, okay? Changes because of Scorpio, right? Depth, right? Scorpio is also a sign of, you know, transformation. So, you know, whatever needs to come out there, sometimes we need to face the shadow side of those areas in our life. But Jupiter is going to bring opportunities, understanding, and elevation for sure, okay? Now, for Capricorn, Jupiter rules the 12th house and it rules the 3rd house, right? It rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So Sagittarius is their 12th house. So we have the 12th Lord, right, going into the 11th house. So the 12th house is about losses and expenses, long-term investments, vacations, right, imagination, getting away from the troubles of the world, because the 12th house is a moksha house, or a house of liberation, right? So, and the 12th Lord goes into the 11th house. So there could be some, you know, push and pull in respect to 11th house affairs, for example, because the 12th Lord is going to the 11th, the 12th house Lord is going to the 11th house. And so there could be some losses in respect to these things. There could be contemplation, and again, contemplation in respect to all these 11th house affairs, okay? Whatever you desire on a worldly level, right? This is the 11th house. So there could be some, Jupiter is a sattvic planet. So it gets involved with things because it's inspired to, okay? And it's a Brahmin, as I mentioned in the introduction, meaning that it wants to understand, you know, and it wants to go deep within it. And in the sign of Scorpio, you know, this is double emphasis, we could say. So these things will be under review, all these things, right? Jupiter is also an indicator of children and the husband, for both heterosexual woman as a homosexual man. It's, you know, teachers, for example. So, you know, and 12th Lord can indicate sometimes, you know, the 12th house is related to, sometimes the people that go to 12th house dashas can, you know, often feel a bit stuck, right? But see, we never get stuck without a reason, right? It's because we need to change, right? And just keep the eclipses in mind that happen in August, right? So, and try to tie what these eclipses meant for you. Try to tie that in with what you know, Jupiter is going to do in the sign of Scorpio, right? So the eclipses happened for Capricorn in their 2nd house, right, and also in their 8th house, the second of, you know, finances, whatever you need to support you in your life path. And in the 8th house, there was an eclipse, right? The 8th house is the house of changes, right, of sudden transformation. You know, finances that comes in from other people, the occult, you know, becoming psychologically healthy, becoming stronger, right, on the psychological level. So these things have been, you know, under, you know, the influence of the nodes, right? And so the nodes mean, you know, they make things change, right? And Ketu is gonna, you know, want to resolve some things, right? It's gonna want to withdraw from things, and Rahu is, you know, gonna expand it, explode it, right? Make it bigger than it really is, for example. And it's, you know, where we're heading and where we have this compulsive need. And so if you look at, you know, 2nd house, whatever you need on your life path, 8th house, becoming psychologically healthy and knowing what you need. And then you look at the 12th Lord, which is about release and letting go and elevate, you know, and letting go before we elevate. And that Lord goes into the 11th house, right, of social networks, of what you desire on a worldly level, what you want to accomplish in respect to how you want to grow, right? Because the 11th house is the strongest upachaya house. How are you going to have an impact on the world, for example, right? How are you going to deal with your desires? How are you going to deal with what you desire on a worldly level, which can be tricky, right? Because the 11th house is, you know, is considered, it's an upachaya, it's not a dharma house, it's not a natural, it's not an inspirational house necessarily, because it has to do with your personal desires, like, again, on a worldly level. So there could be some, you know, confusion and some illusion involved with that as well, because, you know, it is also the sign of Scorpio. So, but see, so I think learning about what you want to express, right, what's your role in the world really deeply, right? Not looking for, because the 11th house can have to do with being validated and this kind of thing. So I feel that these things will be under review, we could say, being validated by others, by peers, right? By other people. The 11th Lord is very much about that. It's see, the 11th Lord is one of the great yoga breakers, like yogas, Raj yogas, this important yogas that put you on your life path and that give you inspiration and that give you the insight to go along and to go on the path. About it's all about the who you really are. Okay, not what other people think. What you expect from other people. Sometimes that can be a blockage, right? So Jupiter is going to give insight into that, and I think it's going to be a deep transformational time, in the sense that you're going to contemplate about what your role in the world is, what you really want to express. Is it something that is merely personal, that is merely it's maybe a strong way to put it, but something artificial, right? That is not really lasting, that is not able to deeply fulfill you, right? Jupiter is going to shine a light on that. It's going to try to make you understand that that when you're looking for validation on some level, it can be disrupting factor to put you on the path, right? And now, see, what I want to mention is that Capricorn, because Pluto is also there, right? And it's been transiting for a long time now. But when the end of 2017, Saturn will be transiting the sign of Capricorn. And so it's going to enter its own sign. It's going to have a great dignity there, and it's going to become a manifesting planet, because, the Lord of a sign is always a manifesting planet, okay? Now, Jupiter from Scorpio will also be Rashi aspecting the sign of Capricorn, right? And giving it a great manifesting strength. Right? There's going to be two manifestors for a whole year, the whole year of 2018 onto, Capricorn. Right, and then, if you look at Mercury, which is another manifesting influence, when Mercury will be transiting when Mercury will be transiting Scorpio, Capricorn, Taurus, and Leo, there will be three manifesting influences onto the sign of Capricorn. Okay, this is great. So there's going to be a great influence, a great emphasis on your swadharma, your life path, and about you, right? What you want to manifest. And because Jupiter will be transiting from October 10th, right? The sign of Scorpio, it will start giving direction, it will start pointing that direction. That's what I'm saying. So, and then at the end of 2017, when Saturn enters the sign of Capricorn, there's going to be a serious manifesting influence to the life path, right? To the body, the appearance, the whatever is you, whatever is your life path, whatever you want, you really deeply want to, okay? And so in preparation of that, it's kind of interesting to see, because Saturn will be before 2018, Saturn will be transiting the sign of Sagittarius, the 12th house there, right? And then the 12th lord from Capricorn, right, from your sign, is in the 11th house. So mixing all these things together, it's like contemplation about what you want to express, who you are, right? And in respect to validation, in respect to how people look at you, how you see yourself, and shedding a light on how this can prevent you from actually following your dharma. Okay, that's what I feel. Okay, it's maybe a long explanation here, and it's going to be an intense time for Capricorn. It's going to be very interesting. All these manifesting planets in 2018. Pluto is still there, so Saturn will be coming closer to Pluto as well, which is going to make things really intense, and so on. So I feel Capricorn is kind of it's a nice mix of things happening, astrological events happening for a Capricorn ascendant for sure. Okay, I hope I made a little bit of sense for you. So I tried my best. Okay, so good luck with that. And now we will move on. No, I have to also talk about Capricorn. For Capricorn ascendant, Pisces is the third lord also. Okay, I forgot that. It's still Mercury retrograde going on here for me. So the third lord goes to the 11th house. The third house has to do with, learning new things, upadesha, short trips, right? Courage, developing your courage, your strength, and your will. you know, dealing with employees, technical intelligence, all these things go to the 11th house. So learning about new things in respect to 11th house affairs, in respect to larger social networks, in respect to gains, how to gain more, right? In respect to being validated, being, what is it? You know, the 11th house is also titles, you know, recognition, right? How to deal with that, learning new things about that, applying your courage, third house courage, to look into that, Jupiter, right? And to go beyond that, to transform that, Scorpio, okay? And so on, okay? So, okay, enough for Capricorn ascendant. Now, let's move on to Aquarius ascendant. Okay, for Aquarius ascendant, Jupiter will be transiting their 10th house. Okay, this is a good thing for Aquarius ascendant. So 10th house, what is the 10th house? The 10th house is the actions, your great deeds, the great deeds you perform, your actions in the world, right? Getting recognition, getting respect. You know, the 10th house is the actions of the father, right? And in that sense, authority figures. The 10th house is also being away from home, because it's, you know, the 7th from the 4th. You know, the 4th is the home, the 7th is the long distance. So, you know, 7 from the 4th is the 10th. So getting away from that, the respect you get, as I mentioned. So Jupiter in there, great. Jupiter is going to be in great dignity in the sign of Scorpio. There's going to be transformation. There's going to be opportunities. There's going to be abundance, elevation. You know, working together with the spouse, for example, for a heterosexual woman and a homosexual man is possible. New teachers, you know, working together with teachers, children, for example, right? You know, going to have children in the 10th house there. So actually, you know, the deeds you perform, the actions that you undertake with your children, or your children could go under transformation, because, you know, it's a sign of Scorpio there. Maybe they get more, you know, attuned to what they want to express, for example, this kind of thing. Okay. Also teachers, also Jupiter rules paternal grandparents. What is it? What is else? So Aquarius, you know, Pisces is the 2nd house for Aquarius. So, you know, Jupiter rules the 2nd house for Aquarius ascendant. So the 2nd Lord goes to the 10th house, right? So the 2nd house is whatever you need to support you on your life path, finances, resources, you know, close friends, family, the name you get, your self-value, you know, collections, wealth, stones, gems, etc. This is the 2nd house, and the 2nd Lord goes to the 10th house, okay? So, and so you can expect maybe, you know, more finances, right? Maybe you you act on that. You know, the deeds you perform is that maybe how should we put this together? Like the 2nd Lord goes to the 10th house. Your self-value, for example, is going to be expressed. It's going to be, you're going to act in new ways, or perform, or look for new ways to express that in the world, right? For example, see, it's like the 10th house is action, the action bhava. And so whatever you do in respect to those things, in all those things, 2nd house affairs, Jupiter as a natural indicator, it will become, in a way, center stage, in the sense that it's going to be highlighted, because the 10th house is the highest point, right? It's going to be visible. It's going to be expressed. There's going to be given more ways of expressing those things, putting them into the world, and from that you will learn, obviously, okay? And because Jupiter is always, you know, wants to learn things and wants to get more insight into that, and so yeah. Besides that, you know, Jupiter also rules the 11th house for Sagittarius, and the 11th house is the house of gains, right? The house of Supachaya house. It grows over time. It's about, you know, recognition, getting titles. 11th house is domesticated animals, but most importantly, let's say it's the house of gains, acquisition of various objects. So whatever you desire on a worldly level. So the 11th Lord is going to go to the 10th house as well. And so, you know, a lot of social activities, new ways of acting in respect to these things. You know, the 10th house is, you know, it is career, right? And so larger social networks, and bringing larger social networks into the house of, you know, of your actions of career. So this can augment because, or this can elevate, or this can, you know, become bigger because Jupiter is, you know, making that bigger, right? It's going to elevate things. It's going to create abundance in respect to those things. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much about it for Aquarius ascendant, right? Cool. So now let's move on to Pisces ascendant. For Pisces ascendant, Jupiter will be transiting their 9th house, okay? This is great because the first lord, their first lord, right, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, goes to the 9th house, Scorpio. And Jupiter will be in a great dignity in the sign of Scorpio. So 9th house is all about, you know, higher learning, your teachers, inspirational travel, right? You know, getting, you know, lucky, being lucky. Luck is also seen from that in your fortune, okay? So also gurus, right? The 9th house is the house of teachers and higher learning. So Jupiter is the natural indicator of that. So that's going to be wonderful because the first lord is going to the 9th house. And so the first lord is both an angle and a trine lord, right? It deals with action and inspiration, acting on your inspiration. And it's going to the 9th house of inspiration and dharma, right? The 1st, the 5th, and the 9th on the dharma houses of inspiration. So transformations, going on travel, inspirational travel, learning new things, you know, evolving spiritually. It's gonna be a great time to, you know, get involved with all these things, and these things will have an ease to it because it is happening in all these dharma houses. Okay, it's great. Scorpio, you know, indicates again great depth and transformation, sudden ups and downs, you know, but Jupiter is in a good dignity there. Jupiter has all these, you know, qualities and significations of that are very, you know, how should I put it? That are very much, you know, emphasizing what Pisces and the 9th house represent, for example. So you can see that all these things add up, and so it's going to be a very inspirational time for Pisces ascendant, generally speaking, right? For sure, because Jupiter being in the 9th there. Now, the 9th house is also an important house for children because it's the 5th from the 5th, right? And especially in a woman's horoscope, we definitely look at the 9th house, which is the 5th from the 5th, not only the 5th house, right? The 5th house is, you know, commonly known as the house of children, but the 9th is also very important. Jupiter is an indicator of children, right? So great time, great learning, depth, insight, and respect to, you know, what children mean for you. Maybe your children go to a highly creative time, or something happens for them that is inspirational, both for you and the child, right? And also transformation. Scorpio is always, you know, a sign of transformation. Okay, it's unpredictable, so it's interesting. Great. So as I mentioned, you know, first lord goes to the 9th. Then also for Pisces, Jupiter rules, you know, the 10th house as well. And so, you know, Jupiter is, you know, a very important planet for a Pisces ascendant because, you know, it rules the 1st house, right, which is, again, an angle, an action, and a trinal, a dharma, an inspirational house. And the 10th house is an action house. It's one of the cornerstones, right? It's one of the important houses. And the 10th house, again, has to do with, you know, the great deeds you perform, you know, the respect you get. 10th house is, you know, the actions of the father, authority figures, being away from home is also seen from the 10th house, your career, right? And so, you know, all these things, that is the 10th lord, right? goes to the ninth house, and that's also a very strong placement. It's a strong combination because it's an angle lord that goes to an trine house, right? So I think Pisces is very much blessed because Jupiter will be, transiting their ninth house, and the 10th lord and in the ninth house. Just wanted to make sure here that I'm not making any mistakes. So, 10th lord's career action going to the ninth of luck, ninth of expansion, the ninth house of inspiration, the ninth house of learning new things. Working with children, working with the husband is all possible. Your paternal or your grandparents can go to a great transformation, right? There could be some, good luck happening to them. Wow, this is really good. Now Saturn will be, has been transiting Pisces. It's his 10th house, right? And the end of 2017, Saturn will be moving on to the sign of Capricorn, where it will enter its own sign, which, it will have a great dignity and a manifesting potential as well. So, you can expect in respect to 11th house affairs in 2018, some good manifestation strength to Capricorn, right? So, but, Saturn has been transiting the 10th house for Pisces, making it more difficult and maybe more delaying influences, more work, right? More responsibilities, etc. So, but Saturn will be moving on, and then the 10th lord, Jupiter, is transiting, the ninth house of Scorpio. So this is a very positive change, right? Because Jupiter will be able to perform even better, we could say, okay? And because Jupiter is the 10th lord and Saturn will be going out of Sagittarius there, there will be a relief in respect to career, in respect to your action in the world as well, for sure, okay? And then let's move on to Pisces ascendant. So, oh no, that's what I said, right? Okay, cool. I'm still having a little bit, trouble with the Mercury retrograde here. But I think I went over all signs, so it's going to be a positive time for everyone, right? Scorpio is going to be under great manifesting potential. I'm going to make a video about, Saturn going through the sign of Capricorn and getting all this manifesting strength from Jupiter. And then, depending on where Mercury transits, it's going to be 3 manifesting influences to the sign of Capricorn. So it's going to be highly creative manifesting time for the sign of Capricorn. And, Capricorn is going to be a house for everyone. And this will happen from, 2018 onwards. Okay. So all the best for you. Good luck, and talk to you a little bit later. Bye.